Ladies and gentlemen, you thought you could silence me. You thought that a little bit of surgery was going to keep me quiet and you weren't going to get these spicy takes. You thought maybe for a week, I don't have to hear Jason yelling about God knows what. But guess what? Nah, you're going to have to take it. And with that being said, Ira, take it away.
Welcome to League One Fun, presented by the Beautiful Game Network and brought to you by Roughneck Scars and Golden Goal Press. And that person you heard there was Jason, of
Back,
course.
baby.
He's back. He's wearing his Metro Stars jersey tonight because he lost a bet.
Now you're ruining the vibe.
As we record, my Red Bulls / Metro Stars are tied 2-2 to the Vancouver Whitecaps. So I will be watching that replay. So no spoilers, please, in any of the chats or Twitter for a few minutes, please. And also with us from Capital Combustion, we have Westen. Westen, what's going on, man?
Hey, man. Yeah, Jason was saying before the pod, he's not sure if he's going to be quiet or loud. I'm like, dude, of course you're going to talk all the time. Don't act like you might be quiet. I'm shocked I didn't get kicked off after last week, so I got to bring a little more edge.
Well, I can't roast your ass if we kick you off just yet. So
I'm going to be a little badder this week. I'm going to be a little badder. Let's go.
Okay,
Let's go.
All right. So first, we have a little bit of news for League One, and first is that Tucson's Jim. I can never pronounce his name. Is it Jamga? Is that
Jamba, isn't it?
Jamga.
Yeah.
He was named the USL League One Player of the Week. He's from FC Tucson. Had a pretty good game. Would anyone disagree that he shouldn't be one of the top couple of guys there, and then see a good pick for Player of the Week?
Yeah. I don't mind it at all. He scored 2 goals back to back in a 15-minute span. He's been dangerous all year. Somebody that, like I said, Tucson, I don't know why teams keep fouling anywhere close to the box, but they do, and then he makes them pay, and the rest of the team makes them pay. So props to Jamba. Get some Jamba juice as his Twitter handle.
We have a little we have a question about the team of the week a little bit later in the show. A couple of signings to mention. Firstly, the Chattanooga Red Wolves signed someone from their USL League 2 side, from the Dalton Red Wolves. Abadulio Yaya Siasi. Yaya is his nickname. He's apparently a pacey forward. He had played for Eastern Florida State, where he played in 35 games, had 9 goals and 9 assists in those 35 games. So he's not only a goal scorer, he's also a facilitator. He grew up actually in the FC Dallas Youth Academy somewhere, and also played for I think it's supposed to be Pride FC. And so he's young, he's fast. Is this, Westen, do you think that this is the kind of signing that the Red Wolves might need?
I mean, a little more
old and slow. That's what the consensus seems to be. So this guy's young and fast, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that's what Chattanooga could use. I mean, I don't know tons about him besides how he played this week, but maybe a little more youth in that roster, especially as the season goes on, might be a good thing.
Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, they can use a little bit of everybody, but he played this weekend and was great. It was probably their best player on the field, and makes me think that, if that's the product that their League 2 team is putting out, then maybe their League 2 team could have beat Tormenta 2's team in the U.S. Open Cup.
Man, not letting that go. You said it would be one news cycle, Jason. You've now been 3. All right, and Lansing got a couple of loanees from Chicago. Weston, since we have you here, why don't you tell us about Grant Willard and Stefan Cleveland?
Yeah, it was, we've been kind of wondering what was up with this whole Chicago alliance. We hadn't seen any real benefit to it, so it was definitely good to see a couple players come through. The team clearly needed some backline depth. We've been playing almost the same squad the whole time, no matter how little rest there was. So Lillard slotted in nicely this week as a center back, and for Brandon Fricke. I thought he brought a physical presence. He's 6'4". I think he was also a little bit part of one of our set piece goals, blocking off a guy. Stefan Cleveland, I wasn't sure if we needed a goalkeeper. I thought Kyle Hines played pretty well, but he really impressed me. Both goals he gave up, and we'll get into it, but he played well, and his ball skills in particular stood out to me.
All right. Well, let's head on to the results from Week 8 of USL League One. Firstly, OCB 2, Toronto 2-0. We had goals in the 42nd minute from Moses Tablante. Franco Mingo tied things up in the 44th minute. And is that right?
No,
No. I'm sorry. He got a red card.
Yeah, he
That's
got a
not
red
what happened.
card.
Yeah, that's my bad. Yeah, that was the red card. I was like, I watched this match and I was like, wait, Toronto didn't score. And then Thiago got a goal in the 75th minute. He scored again tonight. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later. But OCB wins this 2-0. Their first 3 points of the season. They're on 5 points right now, still at the bottom of the table. But Jason, we've talked about this in the past. Orlando has not looked as bad as their results have led them to be. So I guess this really shouldn't be a surprise, should it?
It shouldn't. And you see, as soon as they started finishing, it's almost like a boost of confidence, right? It's like, oh, well, if we're finishing, then we know we're good. We're good to go. And you saw that. And a lot of it too was Toronto came out pressing early in this game, and Orlando handled it really well, extremely well, with great ball movement. And that's something they've been doing all year. And I think because of that, Toronto was a little flustered, and then Okello getting a yellow in the 16th minute. He's a big player for Toronto, especially in the midfield. So now he has to play a little bit more, not as aggressive. And Orlando definitely took advantage of that. And they had great counterattacks. You saw one in the 26th minute that led to a shot in the box. And that's the thing about Orlando too, taking better shots on goal, right? And in the first half, they had 5 shots on goal in the first 45 minutes. As a comparison, the rest of the season, Orlando's been averaging 1 shot on goal every 23 minutes. So with that confidence, with them going forward, they looked great. And then they're pressing too, right? That caused Toronto problems. And Orlando's been pressing well all season, but now because it's better, because they're quicker, they're having faster throw-ins, they're more organized, it led to chances at goals. And I think they, especially in the first half, were absolutely great.
One of the things that I noticed in this match is, we'd been complaining for a couple of weeks that OCB had continued to take shots from like 25 yards out and taken a lot of them. They still took a few, but I feel like they were told, hey, you need higher quality chances, and maybe look for one more pass, or take 2 touches or 3 touches and get to the inside the box. So yeah, they actually had 6 shots on target this game. Toronto won, so it wasn't exactly like it was very lopsided, but those were also higher quality chances, I think, and that's one of the reasons why they got some of those goals.
And what they're doing too is they're rotating their forwards and their wingers a lot now, right? So Tablante comes on and he has a great game, and even scored the goal after. And it's funny, it's kind of ironic. They stopped the corner kick, Orlando did, and then countered and went down the field and scored a goal. And set pieces have been probably their biggest weakness, especially corners. So now you have Tablante coming in, you have Souza coming in, you have these different forwards and these wingers. And I think because of that, and because they offer a variety of different things, it allows for more chances and opportunities in the box, as opposed to just Bagwell being up there by himself and knowing the type of player he is and the type of style and the way you have to get the ball to him. Now you have more chances. You can cross upwards, you can keep it low, you can go through players with through balls, time runs. So it's working, right? And then we'll talk about the game today where they beat Richmond, and it's the same way. They're trying different ways to get into the box. It's working. They're taking better shots, and it's like I tweeted this weekend. For Orlando, win 3 in a row. They're at 2 now. They're in contention. I think that they get their swagger and they're good to go.
Westen, you have anything to opine on this game?
Well, to be fair, if anybody wins 2 or 3 in a row right now, they're like jumping up 5 spots. Like this table is ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, Orlando really,
except of course North Texas, who was defeated.
Yeah, fair. So yeah, I mean, Orlando was deadly on the counter. Their build up there really impressed me. Souza was very impressive. And we criticized Orlando's backline. They somehow managed to not let up 1 shot in the first half to Toronto. That was an impressive performance. Weirdly, I thought, and I saw this with Lansing in their Open Cup game, I thought they looked a little uncomfortable up a man with possession at times. But they got through it, and they got the second goal. And, I mean, they look much more disciplined as well. It seems like they're starting around to form, and all of a sudden there's literally – that was the one team that you looked at and you're like, as much as you hyped them up, Jason, the goal differential was still there.
You looked at.
So it really looks like there's no easy wins in this league at this point. If Orlando's going to start, and the Richmond game really showcases that. I mean, you could say it's Toronto, but their performance against Richmond today really seems to show that every team is deadly in this league, and they're no exception. They have, especially if they keep up their discipline, because that was the big concern early.
And the 4 S's of this team defensively: Silva, Seamus, Sergio, and Simeon. 10 clearances, 8 tackles, 6 interceptions, and more importantly, 4 chances created. So when your defense is defensively playing well and also overlapping and creating those chances, especially on counterattacks, that's when this team is dangerous.
All right. Well, in the interest of time, since we have a ton of games to talk about, let's talk about Greenville Triumph 1, Richmond Kickers 0 in, I don't know what we want to call this, maybe, one of the I-95 or some Southern Derby. In this game, you had Jake Keegan got the sole goal in the 42nd minute. We keep on talking about Greenville needing a striker. Keegan's got 3 goals so far in the season. He has been their leading scorer, but it's been a problem for them. They squeak by this one, and quite frankly, I feel like certainly Richmond could have had a couple of goals here. Richmond didn't look that bad. This was an entertaining 1-0 as far as I'm concerned down in South Carolina. Let's start with you, Westen. What do you think of this match?
The thing that's not first off, who was it that said that you should press Richmond high last week and that they'll make mistakes? Oh, that was weird. Seemed to work out pretty well for Greenville. I mean, that's their style. They're physical. They're tough. If they score 1 goal on you, you're like, oh, well, hopefully we get a draw. But yeah, they're the thing that stood out most to me was Greenville's shift on offense. They've been playing a lot of crosses, and we've been complaining about their lack of creativity. Today they just decided to shoot. 16 out of their 23 shots were outside of the box. That's got to be some sort of direction from Harks to do something a little different. If they get a couple more of those shots on frame, that might help create a few more chances. A lot of skied balls, but that was interesting to me. Polak was great. Especially on the counter on that press. And Greenville's creativity did look a little better, especially, when you're up a goal, that helps when Richmond has to come forward a little more. And then, great game by Fitzgerald. I know we'll get into that later, but very impressive game by Fitzgerald.
Yeah, Fitzgerald really kept them in the match. He showed that he's more, maybe acrobatic than I had given him credit for initially. I knew he was a decent shot stopper when the matches that I saw him play for Tampa Bay last season. But he really made some really, really nice saves in this particular game and really kept Richmond in it. But Richmond had their chances too. Jason, what do you think? Richmond didn't do a terrible job really passing around the press, but when they did give it up, they still looked defensively a little bit shaky. What does Richmond have to do when teams press them? Obviously like Lansing did 3 times and Greenville did last week. Yeah,
I don't know. And maybe the lack of bold that hurts with the creativity part. And it's not that they're not passing well in the back. I tweeted, if you guys want to go down my timeline, that there was a 40-second span to where Greenville pressed with 4 people into the corner to try to trap Richmond, and they got out of it, sent the through ball to the middle, had a great chance, and then Polak, who just played out of his mind, had a great last-minute diving effort to block the shot. So with Richmond, I think they have their moments to where they can get out of that press. It's just not consistent enough, and I think a big part of it is they're so slow with it. They need to be faster. They need to have Hughes or whoever push that ball and start going faster, because you can't let all these Polak and Seiler played out of his mind this game. And that's, I think, was the big difference for Greenville too. We talk about them not crossing as much. They only had 14 crosses, successfully crossed 3. So I'm pretty sure that might be their highest ratio of the year. But they had
almost be guaranteed.
Yeah, but they had 16 key passes and chances created, and Cole Seiler accounted for 6 of them by himself. He was 81% passing accuracy in the opponent's half, and just to compare, Richmond had 6 key passes all game. So maybe it's not necessarily just the defense that's letting Richmond down. Maybe it's the way that when they're attacking and giving the ball up in the middle, their defense isn't set. So they need to decide to whether either the defense is going to push up or stay back. And they are going to stay back, then they might not be able to have time to do this back and forth passing. They might need to throw some through balls or some long balls up to Daniel Jackson, who needs to bring them down into the midfield. I wish I had an answer for how Richmond can avoid it, but it's just mistake after mistake. Because even in the Keegan goal, right, it was a great flick from Keegan, but that was a mistake from Akwe, right? He should have headed it to Fitzgerald. He missed the header. Fitzgerald's in no man's land. And it sucks because Fitzgerald played out of his mind, but that's what happened. And so I think when their defense is playing the whole game, like, and it's just even like, because you look at possession, you see Richmond had more possession than Greenville. I think Richmond had 60%, the Greenville's 40.
Yep, 60 to 40.
Yeah. But the issue is that possession is with the defense. It's not in the midfield. It's not with the offense. So the defense is playing the whole game. They're playing with the ball at their feet, and then they have to defend. And eventually you're going to get worn down. So I don't know if the midfield, I don't know if Bolduc and Maxi Rodriguez need to come back more and get the ball themselves to push it. But I think you just put too much pressure on Richmond's defense, and that's the issue with them.
I felt like Gallardo didn't have his best game this game either. Like when he's on, Richmond just looks much more dangerous, right? Because he's their creative player. So I wonder how much of now both teams played midweek in the
Open Cup.
No, they didn't. Richmond played midweek in the Open Cup, right? Greenville, that's right. Greenville played as well. So, but I feel like Gallardo was like a step slow this game, and he just wasn't himself. And I agree with you that as Richmond, if Richmond's going to play this possession style of game, I think they have to move the ball, a little bit more with one touch. A lot of times you see guys taking 2 touches and then looking up, and people are moving into good positions. They're just not necessarily getting the ball quite fast enough. And I think that that's one of the problems with, moving the ball up into the midfield. And I agree with you. Like, look for those line breaking passes every once in a while, because if nothing else, you're going to keep a team that presses you off balance if you do that. Like, you don't do it every time, but you do it every once in a while, and you're going to have to adjust for that.
Yeah, to that point, I every time I look at a Richmond game, I like to look at passes in their own half. 273 in their own half to 160 in the opposition half. That's pretty
exactly. You're asking so much of the defense, right? You're asking them to not only handle a press that's coming at them, so they're constantly having to deal with that, but then to also create. And it's just that it's got to change it this way, whether it's the midfielders that come back and help, whether it's, sending Akwe up higher to start the attack higher. And that's where you've seen Richmond has had success. If they're able to win those middle balls, that's when they send Joe, with a through ball and he can finish it.
All right, moving on to a game that let's see. Well, apparently North Texas is a bad team, according to Westen.
Apparently.
And even Lansing couldn't beat North Texas. It was 2-2, Lansing versus North Texas. You had goals by I'm going to just do my best here. Mendiskin?
Rafa Mensingen. There you go.
Say it again. One more time.
Mensingen. Rafa Mensingen.
Mensingen. In the 54th minute, then you had Alan Bruce then scored for Lansing. Alex Bruce, I'm sorry, in the 65th minute. But North Texas did not give up, and Ricardo Pepi got a free kick about 20 yards out that he on the left side of the penalty area, and he into the right. He's terrible.
I got to drink during this part. Sorry.
So he came on as a substitute. I was a little bit surprised, and Westen, by the way, is still drinking after that game, swallowing away his sorrows. But Pepi had come off the U17 World Cup qualifying, where the United States lost to Mexico in extra time. It was 2-1. Very, very late goal by Mexico. Pepi didn't look great in that game, quite frankly, but he came on as a substitute in this game and made an impact. 83rd minute free kick goal.
What other striker in this league comes in and immediately makes an impact on the game like that? That's right. The best striker in the league does. And I don't want to hear none different. Get out of my mentions.
So he's still in your for Jason. I'm sure he's still in your best 11 even after week 8.
Yes.
Continues to be. And Arturo Rodriguez ties things up in the 87th minute. We'll talk about him in today's match as well a little bit. But also Alex Bruce, after scoring his nice goal, and it was a nice goal, winds up getting a red card in just before the end of the match. Weston, let's start with you. You know, now that you've had a few days to mull this over and wallow away in your alcohol after this match, you know, what were your thoughts? You know, Lansing didn't have to give up all of these goals. They gave up that free kick very late that started the North Texas comeback. But, you know, this easily could have been a 2-0 match or a 2-1 match.
Yeah, I mean, on our podcast, if you look, Lansing had 5 big chances, and that is not an exaggeration. Those were big chances, one-on-ones versus the keepers, open net. Also, Rafa Mensingen coming down the wing. That's an easy way to remember that one for future reference. Before I start, I got to address Jason here. I'm tired of the abuse about my take last week. It was a perfectly fair take. What is a good team, okay? So if you put any of these – so
you know someone's struggling when they're like, okay, so the definition of good, though, right?
A team that's undefeated in 7.
So what I'm talking about what a good team
in 7 matches.
So what I'm talking about what a good team is, like, obviously it's within the league itself, okay? So if we put any of these teams in the Premier League, they would struggle, okay? So I'm saying – Jason here. So his face, I got a black on his face to kill me. So my point when I say there's no good teams is I think they're all very evenly matched. That is what I was saying. And you know what? Maybe I got to make a small, especially after watching Texas today, maybe I got to make a small modification to that. But that was Texas's first real road test besides Greenville, and they did struggle a little bit. I mean, outside of a 10-minute barrage there, they didn't look amazing. They looked fine, but they looked about the level of Lansing. So yeah, the missed opportunities by Lansing was the biggest one early. This was their best press since game 1. They came out aggressive. 24 interceptions tells the story there. They were all over them. Biggest aspect in that to me, Alex Bruce is probably our strongest pressing striker. Today was also the return of X. X strikes back. Your MVP pick back on the map, Jason.
He heard us talking about him. He heard us.
Yeah, he came out hard. What excellent game by him. And I don't know if Lansing really has someone that can really fill that cam role outside of him. So that's a big development for the team. I thought the transfers from the Fire were very impactful. Lillard in particular, I thought brought a very physical presence that the back line needs, some composure. Cleveland was really good. I don't blame you to go on him. Just an outrageous goal by Pepe. Rodriguez, total flopper, but whatever. Man, there was some rough flops.
It wasn't a pretty goal, but it was a goal.
Yeah. But I mean, it wasn't. Yeah, that goal was fine. I'm talking about earlier. His stuff setting up the free kick. And then he had a play where Cleveland tried to rip the ball from him, and he literally flew over, and he got a yellow card for it.
Weston, he is a child.
he got a yellow card for it, so he was put in timeout. Ref put him in the corner. So it was a complicated game.
Is 20, is he not? I believe he's 20. I think his brother is 16. Yeah, they're like 3 or 4 years apart.
I thought he was 19, 18. Okay.
Yeah, he's not as young. He's not the younger brother, so he's the older brother.
But yeah, I mean, the last 10 minutes, I think that's sometimes a byproduct of when you play that aggressive style. I think they wore down a little bit. And I think this team can get a little, they are one of the younger teams outside the 2 teams. They do seem to get a little emotional sometimes when things don't go their way. And I thought, the red card post game kind of shows that a little bit. I think maybe after that first goal, they started losing their composure a little bit. So tough result, but I mean, especially just watching Texas take on Madison, I feel good to an extent. I mean, they really competed with this team that's been really good against everyone else.
Feel good. Interesting choice of words.
Jason, your thoughts?
So, I do agree. I think Lansing played extremely well, especially that first half. If you watch what North Texas does, a lot of their goals they score are within 4 passes. They get the ball, it's usually from Jada, and it's either a long ball or he gets it to the middle to Arturo or Gomez. And Lansing did a great job of intercepting that third pass. And that's where a lot of those interceptions came from, especially in that first half. You would watch the 1-2, and that third pass is the most pivotal because that's usually the through ball. And then they can either set up an easy tap in or cross it. And Lansing did a great job at intercepting that pass and did a great job of being physical. And yeah, they were playing 17-year-olds and didn't care. They were putting elbows into them and pushing them over, and they did what they needed to do. And so Lansing played great. But you talk about that last 10 minutes where they fell apart, you saw it coming the 10 minutes prior to that. In the last 20 minutes, you watched that pendulum swing, and I don't know if it was the Pepe substitute that just kind of gave them that confidence and that, okay, we got our star player coming in, we're gonna step it up now. But North Texas in the last 20 minutes created 6 chances alone. And that's just in the last 20 minutes. And they just looked quicker with the ball. Those passes were getting in quicker. And you're right. I think what you're saying with like finishing chances, has also finished one of those one-on-one chances in the first half. Had he finished that chance in the 68th minute, or I don't know who he flicked it to, but he flicked it to, I think it was
Bruce.
Alex.
Yeah, Bruce
in the
missed a pretty
68th
good one
minute.
too, yeah.
And that was a golden chance, right? They finished one of those chances. That lead might be too big for North Texas to actually come back. But also, because I want to shout out underappreciated players, Arturo Rodriguez has been killing it. Tanner Tessman has been absolutely fantastic the past 2 or 3 games. And in the final 20 minutes, he was 3 of the 6 chances created. And throughout the game, 2 shots on target, 6 tackles, and 3 clearances. So he was doing it on both sides of the ball and had the most passes on the whole entire team and finished the highest passing percentage in the opponent half from anyone that had over 10 passes. So he really was the foundation of that comeback. And even though Rodriguez and Pepe were the ones who finished it, Tessman is a big part of that team, and he's going to be really important for North Texas moving forward.
Yeah, Tessman plays more of an 8 than a 6. I know a lot of people will call him a holding midfielder, but I think he's, of the two people in the double pivot that, North Texas seems to have, he's the one that tends to press up a little bit more. So he's the guy who, looks for Rodriguez or the other Rodriguez. And he'll also come up. I mean, he's already had a goal, right? He scored, I don't remember his last week or the week before, but he had that great, long range shot from about 25, 30 yards out that, found the top corner. I think one of the other things about, this game in particular was, not only did they not finish the chances, but to go back to what you were saying, Jason, when Pepe came in, the thing that he does, I think for North Texas in particular, is he spreads the field. So he's able to make runs in between the seams, in between the right back and the center back, or the left back and the other center back. And when he does that, he forces 2 defenders to come on him, and that creates a lot of space for either David Rodriguez or Arturo Rodriguez, and it winds up being I think a really important substitute. And I think that's one of the things that happened. And you do that when your defenders already have tired legs, and it becomes difficult for the other team. So I think that's one of the reasons why you had so many chances created by North Texas late.
Weston, 10-second answer. Where's Celso's best position?
False 9.
Yeah, there you go. I think he looked great, especially with that flick to Alex Bruce. That should show you
nice.
everything. When he has his back to goal, or when he's in the middle of the box, can control it, I think he's a lot better than when he's on the wing.
I don't think he should be put in too many positions where he's got to make a lot of decisions. I think that's where he struggles.
Okay, well, let's move on to our next match. This one was at Forward Madison. They played South Georgia Tormenta, and Tormenta squeaks out a win, 1-0. Goal by, of course, who else would it be but the inaugural player of the month, Connor Antley, in the 50th minute. Also getting his, I think, first start for Tormenta was Jad Arslan. By the way, 2 players who I interviewed last week, and check out that go back in your podcast feed to hear me talking to both of them. So I wonder if Jad Arslan got a League One fun bump from maybe having that interview. But Connor Antley's still on fire, Jason. What else can you say about this guy who's supposed to be a right back? He doesn't seem to be one.
And you might be right about that, just because it's not that he's not in his goal, right place at the right time. I will say that.
Yeah, and it was on a set piece, if memory
right. But I will say that. But that's not really a good example of what he does. When you watch that game, he was literally taking on 3 defenders in the open field, and was the reason that Tormenta is able to open those attacks. And he's easily one of, if not the most important player for them right now, because when he's on, he requires so much attention of where he's at. He draws in so many people, and because he's a good passer, he sets up so many opportunities. And then Charlie Dennis has been killing it the past couple games, and he is super important to them because he's the one that's the pivot in the midfield right now. So what's going on is Alex Morel is everywhere, right? And he's able to press. Charlie can go up to be the highest in the midfield, and as soon as he gets the ball, because of his athleticism and his size, he can either take defenders on himself, or he can wait for Coutinho and Marco and anyone down the side to dish it off to. But yeah, Charlie Dennis and Connor right now are the intercontinental tag team champions of the world that I would not want to face off right now.
No, not the British Bulldogs on Chattanooga Red Bulls, not right now anyway.
No.
Weston, you have any thoughts on this match?
I don't think that's a real title, Jason.
Yes. Now it is.
I thought it was a very evenly matched game. I thought it was an unfortunate result for Madison. If Yara doesn't make a heroic save, the 1-1 result is probably the fairest result. But you know what? Tormenta doing this on the road when League One teams are 9-19-9 on the road, that's a big deal if you can go into someone else's house and make an evenly matched game, squeak out a win. You know what? I think I'm ready to put Tormenta into the good tier.
Oh, wow. Multiple teams are good in this league. Wow.
I put Tormenta in there, and only today am I putting Texas in. I wasn't going to put them in there after Lansing, but I got 2 teams in the good tier, and I got 8 teams in the same tier. Okay. But the thing that impressed me about Tormenta is the first few games they more played an absorb and counter style, and I haven't watched every game they've played, but lately they seem more comfortable with possession. And there's not a lot of teams in this league, I think, that can handle multiple styles, that could play multiple styles. We see these teams get out of their comfort zone and they struggle, and it's early in the season. Tormenta is the one team that seems to be able to adapt and do multiple things, and that whether on the road or on the home, and they impressed me. And they, coming into the season, I didn't think they were going to be that good. Not that I knew tons about their roster. I just knew that they mostly exported everyone from their PDL team. But it turns out they have legit individual talent. I mean, they have at least 3 of the best players in the league right now, with Micheletto, Morel, and Antley. So they got a little everything. They're a tough team.
So we'll give Jason the proper props because he called Tormenta one of the best teams at the start of the season. I think a lot of us were in your camp though, Wes, and we didn't know a lot about many of these players. They had a lot of guys who came up from League Two, and so we knew that they might have some chemistry, but there was a question as to where they are. Can we just talk just for a second maybe about how there is a lot of undiscovered talent in this country? Because when you look at a team with guys like Jad Arslan and Connor Antley, and there's another 8 players behind them who have had minutes for Tormenta, and they're standing toe to toe with veterans within the professional ranks in League One. Do we think that this is an anomaly, or is this something that we're going to see as we get the Omahas coming into the league? Jason, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think in props to Tormenta's organization, because they're the prime example of showing what happens when you do know that there's talent and you're able to build from that, right? So even when you look at their 2 side, they've already started the season 2-0, already have beaten the USL League One team in US Open Cup. There is so much talent in this country, and it's just about finding it. And so now with Tormenta setting up different academies all throughout Georgia, and especially in regions to where there might not be too much shine or too much, outlook, that's exactly what they're doing, right? They're the prime example of showcasing, look at this talent that we're overlooking because they don't have a proper path to professional, or they don't have an academy, and they've done an amazing job down there. And I think that we are going to see that, right? I think when Omaha comes in, I think you see that with Chattanooga now, what they're doing and building their academies and getting their League Two team set up. I think you're seeing that teams are going to go, you know what? We don't need to go out and spend money on a ton of veterans or international players. We can untap talent that we have here within our own town.
Yeah, to play off that, I interviewed Nate Miller, coach of Lansing, early in the season, and before the season started, and he said that this league's going to be good because he said there's more supply than demand in U.S. soccer right now. So, yeah, I mean, this league's giving a lot more players an opportunity to showcase themselves. I'd argue the best player on Lansing so far is Nick Moon. He was in our closed trial. He wasn't even someone we signed. He had to come to a closed trial to make the team. I mean, that's crazy, because when you watch him play, I think he'll be at USL Championship next year at the very least.
Okay, well, thanks guys. And
quickly, just so we don't look too biased, I do want to say shout out Paulo for forward, because when he came on, 5 created chances within the first 20 minutes of him coming on. He was really the one at the end of the game where Tormenta kind of had to play defensively. And he was a difference maker.
He easily could have had 2 assists that, quite frankly, were also tap-ins. So you weren't the only team, by the way, Westen, who missed a couple of sitters, quite frankly. So forward this could have easily been a 1-1 match.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And also shout out to go back into your podcast feed, because we did talk about Tormenta and had interviewed their coach as well as Connor Antley and Jad Arslan in last week. Moving on, Tucson 4 against Chattanooga Red Wolves 0. Is this the largest differential, goal differential in a single match this season?
It might be. Yeah.
I think it was a 4-1.
I was going to say, I think there was a 4-1, but yeah, this might be it.
Yeah. So FC Tucson tore apart the Red Wolves. There were goals by Jordan Jones in the 25th minute, by Cody Wakasa in the 35th minute, and then Devin. I'm going to pronounce his name wrong again.
He's called Devin. We'll pick it up for you.
Yeah, Devin. Thank you. Yeah, 66th and 75th minute, and really, I kind of watched I only watched the first half of this match, but it was clear that the Red Wolves just did not have the legs to keep up with Tucson at all. Weston, did you have a chance to see any of this match?
Yeah, a little bit, and that's why Chattanooga maybe needs an infusion of some more young talent. We'll see if they continue to do that. Just looking overall at Chattanooga, 0-4-1 on the road, just kind of shocking for a veteran team. They're the Jekyll and Hyde team of the league, because honestly, I know you guys weren't impressed, but I thought they looked pretty good against Madison, at least in the first half last week. They're just a totally different team at home and on the road, and I'm very curious. I think they're back at home this week, so I am curious to see that. And Tucson's another team that has been one of the toughest for me to read all year. I mean, this was an impressive performance. I can't figure out how good they are yet.
I think they're hot and cold. I think one thing that Tucson did really well is they closed down Beatty. And I think teams have realized that, look, you shut down the creative player and striker for them, and you don't get service to Eamon Zayed, and the next thing Chattanooga can't score on you, and that frustrates people. But more importantly, and I think Jason, can you talk a little bit about maybe Tucson's attack, because this could have been a 1-1 game, quite frankly, and it could have been a 1-0 game to Tucson, but it wasn't. It got opened up, and there were a lot of good chances that Tucson had early in the game.
Tucson plays to the point. They don't want the ball, right? They're going to give you the ball. They're going to sit back, and then they want you to come to them, and they're going to want to go on the break. And, God bless Chattanooga's back line. They weren't up for it, right? Like Tucson was winning every ball in the middle. They were intercepting it, and then they were just on the run, and Chattanooga could not keep up. And then when you do foul Tucson and hope that, okay, well, if we can't stop this counter, we can foul them outside the box. You can't do that either, because Vega is going to score on a free kick, or they're going to put it in the back of the net off of a rebound. And so I think the issue with Tucson is, if it works, it's great. And they're probably one of, they're competitive and can compete with the top 4 teams in the league. When it doesn't work, that's when you have problems, right? When they go down a goal early and they have to chase it, then you have to change your tactics, and you can't play this whole, well, we're going to wait for you guys to come and then try to counter. So I think that's what it is. I also think that both teams had a lot of crosses, and it necessarily wasn't good for that, like for either team. I think that Tucson was best when they just attacked the goal straight up. And Chattanooga's been doing a lot of crosses all year, and as they should with Zayed and Beatty and everyone up top. But it's just not clicking for Chattanooga. And like you were saying, Weston, I'm interested about that with their away record. One thing to think about is you have a lot of international players who are not used to taking a plane ride from Chattanooga to Tucson, right? Like their furthest away day is a 3-hour bus ride. So I wonder if that travel, especially early in the season, that since they're not used to it, I wonder if that plays a part of it.
Yeah, don't you love those English blogs about their intense 5-hour waste quarter trips? Oh god.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's crazy. People thought I was nuts when I was staying in Warwick and I went up to a West Brom match. It was like an hour train ride, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, that's so far." Okay, so that was the end of week 8. In the points per game, North Texas stands at the top at 2.67 points per game. The only points that they've dropped were to Lansing Ignite. Thank you very much, Weston. And Tormenta at 2.13. Tormenta FC at 2.13 points per game. And then you have a very tightly packed mix with Tucson, the Kickers, and Triumph, all about 1.4 points per game. But a couple of wins by Lansing Forward or Toronto 2, and they'll be right back in the mix as well. All right, but today there were a couple of games. These were technically, I think, week 9 matches, but we'll since I think we each watched at least one of these matches, so we'll talk a little bit about them. Firstly, we had Orlando City B beat the Richmond Kickers 3-1 tonight. Excuse me?
3-2.
Excuse me, 3-2. Yes, that's right. So you had Moises Tablantle scored again in the 4th minute, very early on. Serginho scored in the 27th minute. Lockerbie scored for Richmond in the 35th. Hughes then got the equalizer in the 80th, and then there was a penalty kick that by Ivan in the 84th minute, and Thiago put it away for OCB for the winner. Fitzgerald did get a hand on it, but was not able to keep it out. It wasn't the greatest of penalty kicks, quite frankly, but it was hit hard enough that there was no way Fitzgerald was going to.
Spectacular. It looked like it was going to be a game-saving save seconds before that penalty, and so you got to feel for him because he stood on his head, saved that, and was like, all right, we're going to get out of here with a point, and then they give up a bad PK just 10 seconds later.
Yeah, it was a very back and forth game. I mean, we just talked about OCB and Richmond. I think Richmond played much better this game and played around the press better than they did earlier in the week. I think in general, Richmond's trying to play their game, and the frustrating thing is, OCB comes in and they're shutting down some of the playmakers for. They're shutting down some of the playmakers for Richmond, and Richmond gets frustrated and has a problem creating those chances. But OCB did hang back a bit. They didn't have.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm furious that Richmond we're this many weeks in and still can't handle set pieces. But I'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just I don't get it. At this point, I don't get it anymore. You watched the set piece today for Orlando's first goal. It was literally like a playground. Oh, we're gonna fake this corner into the box, and instead we're gonna kick it to the guy waiting at the top of the box for a shot. And they did that, and literally everyone from Richmond took a seat and was like, let's see if he can put this one in the back of the net. Nobody tried to close in. Nobody marked him. It's just I'm really confused on. And maybe it's because of the rotation of players they constantly have in that back line. That might be an issue, but I don't get what Richmond doesn't understand about. They've literally given up a set piece, I think, in every single game they played this year where a goal was scored against them. So I don't understand where this is coming from and why it's still an issue at this point of the season.
Yeah, there was an interesting stat from
Weston, Weston, hey, talk about that stat, but then also talk to me about the back line, because you noted before we started that there was, we needed a single player probably in the back line of Richmond. Made a big difference in this match.
Oh, I was just commenting more generally on Richmond. I watched the other game, but Nate said, I guess, to the commentator for the Lansing game that 33% of your goals are generally off set pieces. How much time do you spend working on them? And yeah, that's something I noticed against Richmond too. Is just they're not the best against set pieces, and said you would think that would be a higher focus for the team with how important they are to the game. But yeah, I think you guys said Akwe was out or something, so that was potentially.
Yeah, Akwe was on the bench. He was on the bench this game. He did not come in. He did not substitute on. Maybe he has a knock or something, but I think Akwe, while he makes mistakes just like any other center back does, he does a good job for the kickers on the back line in kind of stepping and winning a ball, and he's very brave, and he's not afraid to step out of the box and toward those balls. And would he have given up the penalty like Ivan did? I'm not sure one way or the other if Akwe would have, but I think Akwe would have been a step faster, and because he's that step faster, he's more likely not to challenge for the 50-50 instead of coming in late like Ivan did and creating that penalty, and ultimately that was ended up being the game winner.
Second in the league.
Jason, do you have anything else about this?
Yeah, second in the league in clearances. It makes a difference, right? Like you're positioned better, when to go in and go for that. I didn't expect for Ivan to go in and even attempt to win that, right? He was late, he was behind the player. You wait for the player to come down and try to intercept it, try to get it out for a corner. And like we were saying, I think when Richmond is playing against a team that's younger and faster, their passing has to be faster. And it's not necessarily even in the back line. It has to be in the midfield. And so with that first goal that Richmond scored, Bolduc had a beautiful, beautiful pass to which was finished off by Lockerbie, put it through the keeper's legs. And then you have the second goal, which is the opposite, where it was more of a counterattack. But again, it was quicker passing that led to Hughes being able to finish it. So maybe the build-up thing isn't going to work against a couple of teams. So maybe they tactically need to change, right? And say, if we're playing a more high-pressing team, they struggled against it with Lansing, they struggled against it with Orlando, maybe we don't need to focus on building from the back. Maybe we need to build from the midfield and just try to quick pass from there.
And I do think that that's what they tried to do tonight, in fairness. It's just that, Orlando was all over them. And quite frankly, I think the kickers were unlucky not to get a point in this game, in fairness. Okay, in the interest of time, let's move on to a game that I only saw very short highlights of. But North Texas beat Forward Madison. This game ended 3-1. Did I get that one right this time?
Yeah.
I think I did. Thank goodness. And you had Ronaldo Damas in the second minute. He scores a great banger, super fast, beating his defender on the run, and then goes off and does the CR7 celebration after his namesake. And Pepe got the assist on this one again. Pepe gets on the score sheet.
Almost like
then go ahead.
It's almost like he's good.
Yeah, you would have thought. Arturo Rodriguez finds his brother David in the 8th minute. But just 7 minutes later, Don Smart from a zero angle. I mean, it was a crazy, crazy tight angle that Don Smart puts in across from Giro into the far corner. And then finally in the 70th minute, North Texas puts it away where Joel Agamor gets a pass from Arturo Rodriguez, and it was 3-1, and that was all she wrote. Westen, you said that you were able to watch this match. What do you think?
Yeah, up till when the pod started, but really entertaining game. I mean, Texas's buildup was beautiful. Some flashy goals. Madison plays with some flair too. 17-13 in chances created. So I mean, there was a lot going on in this game. Just the thing that stood out to me was just Texas's unselfishness in the final third. Like this, I believe this is the second goal, just a beautiful layoff by Rodriguez. They might be good. Maybe.
Pretty good. So just some stats on this game. I mean, this was an exciting match, it seems like, and I can't wait to watch it tomorrow. But you had 19 shots for North Texas, 15 shots for Forward, both with four on net. And you had a lot of those shots from inside the box. So North Texas with 9 and Forward with 8 shots from inside the box. So seems like a match that might be worth watching. Particularly you got to see that third. That goal by Damas in the 3rd minute. It's fantastic. I mean, he's got speed like Jason has speed. So just took off.
Yeah, and he's embarrassing people. Best celebration, I think, as a player so far in this league, though. Even the copying his namesake, I like that. But it's also a good look for him too. He was named to the preliminary roster for the Haitian national team for the Gold Cup. So that'd be a good look for him to get on their radar. If he can go in the camp and impress them, we might see him playing this summer. And that should be
that would be great.
Be hopeful for the rest of you
Weston,
USL League teams.
Weston, any last thoughts on this match?
No, I mean, Madison, from what I saw, played them pretty even. Man, Smart just he had the nice first goal. He had a second one he could have had. He had the wide open shot, and he just hesitated, and that was tough to see. Like I said, I've seen a lot of games where I thought Madison was kind of even, and they came out with the loss. Don't know if it's bad luck or bad finishing, but excited to dig in a little more to them as Lansing is coming up on facing them in a week and a half.
One thing to look at what Madison does quickly is they have different players kind of fill that role as a finisher each game, right? So Smart was that today, where in the past it might have been Paulo Jr. Then it was Nunez at one point, and then when Toye is there off alone, he's usually the up top guy. So it might be a good thing, but then it might be a bad thing, right? Because then it's different people. So then you might think, oh, I'm used to crossing right now. Toye's there. It's not Toye. It's Smart. And maybe Smart doesn't handle crosses as well as Toye does. So that's just one thing to watch moving forward, especially when nights like tonight where they don't have the Loons on loan as they're playing Hartha in a friendly with Minnesota.
Okay, well, and moving on to the Week 9 matches or other Week 9 matches on Friday night at you have Toronto FC2 against FC Tucson. There won't be any Franco Ramos Mingos in there because he got a red card for denial of a goal scoring opportunity. So Toronto will be missing him. Let's see. Chattanooga then plays the Greenville Triumph on Saturday. That's 7 p.m. Eastern. There is also Zagoro is one yellow card away from a suspension and a fine too. They get a small fine if they get too many yellows. Tormenta plays Lansing at 8 o'clock. There's no Alex Bruce because he got that red card that we talked about before for abusive language right at the close of the match, and also Grant Stoneman is going to be out as well for yellow card accumulation. Just really quick previews here. Westen, let's talk about the Tormenta Lansing game. No Alex Bruce, no Grant Stoneman. How do you think Coach Nate, handles missing two of his, more important players?
Honestly, I don't think it's a huge deal. So it would be if it wasn't for the Lillard loan, but he's in, so he'll be starting, and then Fricky, who came out for Lillard last week, will just slap back in there. They're fine. Bruce Aspen will just come in, and he's been one of our top goal scorers. Plays a little different, maybe not as strong.
Yeah, but I do think that hurts them in a bit, just because if you guys plan on crossing against Tormenta, that's not going to work because Tormenta's got some big boys in the back, and I think they're the biggest center back team, or the biggest center back teams in the league, as far as with Antley and Phelps and those guys back there. So Bruce gives you more options for more play in the middle, whereas if you're crossing, I think it's going to be tough for Ricky to get behind those.
I mean, Ricky's much bigger though than Bruce. I mean, that's what he does, and we have a lot of nice set piece plays. We have other big guys too that can compete, like Koyfik and Lillard down there. So I mean, I'm just saying I wouldn't be shocked if both those guys sat anyway, because Stoneman hasn't sat at all season, and now we actually have someone that can fill in for him. And Bruce and Espen have kind of been rotating back and forth. So I'm just saying I don't know if that would have mattered, but I don't think it's a great matchup for Lansing either way, because if I'm Tormenta, I'm looking to more sit back and counter and let Lansing keep possession, let Lansing have the ball, hit them on the counter. That's where we've been the weakest so far. So it's a tough matchup for Lansing for sure.
I'm looking forward to seeing how the Chattanooga Red Wolves do back at home. Like you noticed, they're much better. Weston, you noted this. They're a much better home team than they are away team, and they'll be playing the Triumph, and that will come. That match is at 7 o'clock on ESPN Plus, of course. So very quickly, we don't have too many questions, but we are running close to our hour mark here. Who is there anyone that you would replace on the team of the week that USL put out, Jason?
And this is going to be a good debate. Okay, so I understand the hesitation of putting players who did not win on Team of the Week. But for Fitzgerald to not be the goalkeeper on the Team of the Week seems absolutely criminal, because that game could have easily been 4-0 had it not been for Fitzgerald. But then you look at, Hara, who did make the Team of the Week for Tormenta, and then you look at that save he had and the impact of that save, and you can say that that was a game-saving save, because that was probably the best chance. And if they had went up and scored that, Madison probably would have won that game, or at least had a 1-1 draw. So what do you guys think is more important to make the Team of the Week? Is it the save? Is it the context of the save, how important the saves were, or how important the player was, or is it the overall performance compared to the rest of the league?
I agree with you. I think it should be the overall performance, even if your team loses. Like, it can't just be, oh, your team won, so therefore you must have had the best players. Because, in a 1-0 game, where, you're like, who could say that Tim Howard was not the best player on the field in the 2014 World Cup, where he makes amazing saves against one of the best teams in the world? And, the US is, lucky to lose by lucky to lose by only 1 goal because of him. I mean, he was the player of the match, right? And no one would deny that. And I think this is a very similar situation. Westen, do you have an opinion about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not much of a debate. I'm in the same camp as you guys. For baseball, they've kind of done away with the win stat being this be end all thing for the Cy Young Award, because we realized, oh, that's stupid. There's a lot of things you can't control, no matter how well you play. And Fitzgerald, Yara had that one amazing save, but he didn't have to work that hard otherwise. Fitzgerald had to work very hard all game. He deserves it. And the 1 goal, I don't really put on him. I put on Akpe.
Not even his fault. Got caught in no man's land because the defender couldn't give it back to him. So
it's like, what do you think? It's just lazy analysis and lazy work to do it that way. And I knew it would happen, because it happened to my guy, Michael Kirk, earlier in the year when we played Greenville. So I knew that Fitz wouldn't win it, and I knew it would be dumb.
Okay, so we have one fan question that I see right now from the Canadian soccer dude. Who'd benefit the most from having a retirement age Alan Gordon-esque player? Weston, do you have an opinion? Which team would benefit most from like a Alan Gordon-esque player?
First off, props to the Canadian soccer dude. I love the work he puts in for TFC2. Follow that guy. He's the lone guy doing it, so gotta give him some props. Probably Richmond for me. I just think sometimes when they struggle offensively, they could use something like that for Daniel Jackson. Daniel Jackson scored an incredible goal against Lansing, but every other game I've seen him in, he's kind of been non-existent to me, and I think they could use a shake-up, like something like that, to kind of shake things up and get an attack late.
Jason, you have anyone?
Greenville. That's just him, Stephen Lenhart. They're players that are literally built for Greenville. To have a player come off or come on, in the 60th minute, 70th minute, and just sit there and receive those crosses, right? Just know where to be, know how to wrap around the defender, fake going over one side of his shoulder and go to the other. I think that when you have a player in that system that knows how to finish crosses, then Greenville is easily a top 2 team in this league. That's not an exaggeration for me. I think that their defense is so organized, and I think that the way that they're pressing and winning balls in the middle, if they go up if they're up 1-0 and then they have a striker come in and puts them up 2-0 in the 70th minute, 80th minute, then yeah, it's going to be too hard for teams to catch up and compete with that.
Okay, and any other thoughts that either of you might have? Any #spicy takes, Jason?
No spicy takes. I love the 4:00 Friday game for Toronto FC2 in Tucson. I don't know if I'm gonna try to get out of work early to see that. I don't know why they have a 4:00 game. I don't know if there's like something going on
the 29th too. So it's a thing.
Toronto.
Yeah.
Do they have do they do
I wonder if it's before. It's like maybe a double head. with TFC. I don't know if TFC, the MLS team,
Yeah.
has a game afterward. Maybe.
Yeah,
I'm
and
not sure.
Lansing
We'll have to.
Saturday game is also at 4 o'clock against them. That's weird. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if they
Oh, and
do
then
like
they have an
the
11 a.m. game. Man, this is
Wait,
wild.
Toronto has an 11 a.m. game.
Wednesday, June 12th against North Texas. Wow.
And just to answer your question, Toronto doesn't play Friday. So let's talk about this real quick. What does that look like for the league? Because obviously this isn't a good look when it comes for attendance. People aren't going to be able to go to a 4 o'clock game on a Friday, and unless it. And I can understand if maybe they were trying to get more of like students to come. This is an after school kind of a thing. If it was near schools, but like I don't. What do y'all think about that? Because that's not a good look for the league. It looks like they're just trying to develop players.
Well, they are, right? I think for some of the two teams, that's the case. I think, North Texas and Tucson maybe are, trying to do something a little bit different. But I think for TFC2 and OCB, as we know, they are player development platforms first and foremost, and everything else doesn't matter. At least that's what it seems like. And I think the fact you have a 4 p.m. game that they're playing in just shows that. They do have weird things, though, up in Canada sometimes, because I know Ottawa just played a match like at 10:30 in the morning because it was some kind of camp day, and that was on a Wednesday. So I think they played, I want to say they either played maybe Bethlehem Steel or RB or Red Bull 2. I don't remember. So maybe this is something about that. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I'd love for the league to crack down on this, though, because Toronto, whatever. Like, obviously Toronto doesn't care about attendance for these games, but if you're USL League One, I'm a fan that wants to watch the game on TV at least, and I'll be in work. Like, there's a Friday game against Madison at 4 o'clock. Like, the Madison guys either got to figure out something with work, or they're going to miss most of that game, or at least the first half live. And that's dumb. That's just dumb for whatever their stuff is. They don't care about attendance. That's fine. But the away fans,
or just shut off social media, and then when you get home at 7, watch it on ESPN.
But we shouldn't have to do that. Like, that's take your Tim Hortons break later. I don't need for you to make your Canadian excuses. Play the damn game at night like everybody else does.
Fair enough. Okay, Jason, where can people find you?
Home Sweet Soccer. I'm back.
And Westen.
You can follow me at my
but
podcast, Cap Combustion. Also, I don't think I'm going to be on next week. So I do just want to point out for any Madison fans listening, yeah, you guys are kicking me off next week. I'm very offended. So June 1st, I will be at Madison.
We'll have you back in June.
Okay. June 1st, Saturday, I will be in Madison for the Lansing game. I'm going to Nomad World Pub for the Champions League final first, and then I'll be hanging out in town and then going to the game. So if you see a 6'3" blonde dude with a Lansing gear on, feel free to
come fight him. That's what he's saying. He said, come at him.
I said your team is not good, so fight me. Let's go.
All right. And I'm Ira Jersey. I can be found at Ira Jersey on Twitter. Thank you for listening. Please rate, review us wherever you get your podcasts, and check out bgn.fm for all of the great soccer podcasts and written content covering USL League One, USL Championship, USL League Two, NWSL, Major League Soccer, and more. Thanks to our sponsor, Golden Goal Press, the best choice to get your custom shirts, hats, mugs, and other items for just yourself or your organization. Check out their amazing products at a fraction of the price of other places at goldengoalpress.com. And also thanks to Roughneck Scarves, the official scarf supplier of U.S. Soccer, Major League Soccer, United Soccer Leagues, both won a championship, League One and League Two, and get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. And with that, we will be signing off.
Lansing